Want to win money on sports? With Underdog, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash just by picking higher or lower on your favorite players' stats. Millions of fans have won billions of dollars on Underdog. Will you be next? Download the Underdog app and sign up to get a free pick with your first cash entry up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
This time of year, a good hoodie is absolutely essential. And the American Giant Classic Full Zip Hoodie is made to last a lifetime. With timeless style, heavyweight fleece, and durable details, you can depend on it for years to come. Snag the hoodie that will bring you comfort for life, the American Giant Classic Full Zip, and save 20% off your first order at american-giant.com when you use code CLASSIC24 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at american-giant.com. Code CLASSIC24.
Welcome to 3 Yards Per Carry, a podcast covering the Miami Dolphins and the NFL. Now, here's your hosts, Chris, Alf, and Simon.
And we're on, and this is another losing edition of 3 Yards Per Carry. We had 3 in a row that were winning editions, and of course, we can't have a 4th because we can't have nice things. So this was our 7th loss of the season. This show is brought to you by ThompsonCigars.com. Go to ThompsonCigar.com. Use the promo code 3 yards. That's the number 3 yards. You get 25% off your order over $100, 20% off your order over $75. We'll start here. We'll start with the game. In the second half of the show, we're going to talk about some of the individual players. But once again, this team does nothing extraordinary. And when you're playing on the road and you're an underdog, you either have to have an extraordinary performance from one side of the ball to keep you in the game or win it, or you're going to have to get turnovers, or you have to have the opposing team completely implode, which they likely weren't going to do at home on a short week. So if you're doing a checklist of the things you need to do to win these games on the road, you couldn't check any of those boxes. They start off with a muff punt. They never really recovered because they spent the rest of the game trying to redeem that muff punt. They never got it back. Simon, game flow, not in their favor once again.
Yeah, but mistakes of their own making, Alf. I think kind of we've all sort of had a few days to... This would be a very different podcast if this had been done Friday. I think we've all had chance to reflect and think about it. And, you know, just you made the point there about no extraordinary performance, and that's true. I think, you know, the issues there that, you know, people not stepping up in moments when needed, allowing a really good team just to get 14-0 ahead, and then just kind of, you know, struggling / limping our way, you know, trying to get back into the game, knowing full well that we're just not really set up to do it. And, you know, I get the narrative about cold weather. Why wouldn't we? You know, that doesn't get any quieter. In fact, it rightfully gets louder. But Mike McDaniel is 1-14 now against teams with a winning record in 3 seasons, 1-14. That is an astonishing statistic. And I think that speaks, you know, I watched that Philadelphia game last night against Baltimore, and I looked at what Vic Fangio's team or Vic Fangio's defense did to that Baltimore offense in terms of just shutting down Derek Henry, in terms of shutting down Lamar Jackson, shutting down Mark Andrews, not allowing the tight ends to, you know, Isaiah Likely and those receivers to just do anything. And I go back to that conversation that he had last year about, or that we heard, that he wasn't happy with the personnel. And it kind of makes you think maybe he was right and everybody else was wrong in terms of the fact that we were really quick to dismiss Fangio and say, get out of here and blah, blah, blah. And now you look what he's doing. I think the team is built incorrectly. And I don't disagree with the fact that Chris Greer took a flyer on trying to build a sort of a St. Louis Rams with Isaac Bruce and Kurt Warner and Torrey Holt for the modern age. And, you know, to a greater or lesser degree, it worked a little bit. But actually, to the great degree, i.e. winning, full stop, but winning a Super Bowl, getting into the playoffs, those sorts of things, it really didn't work. It's kind of failed. And I think there needs to be a pretty significant and serious rethink now as to what they do. I said after the game, in the kind of heat of the moment, that maybe the head coach's time was up, and 1-14 does not sound a good thing. But I do like what Mike McDaniel does, and I do like what he stands for as a coach, and the creativity and the work that he puts in. And to me, I think the answer is that we need a new setup in terms of the personnel, and that I think that has to come. It has to come with a general manager, because I just think we just looked like the poor, mediocre, mid-level team scrapping away, trying to get up, and sort of being like the little brother trying to climb up the leg of the big brother, and just being shoved away all the time by a team that's got Super Bowl aspirations in Green Bay. And we do not have Super Bowl aspirations. That is clear, and we just weren't good enough in all three phases. There was nobody stepping up to really do something and take the game by the scruff of the neck and drag the team back into it, or drag the opponents back down to our level. That just didn't happen. And it just became, that game was a microcosm of every big game pretty much we've played over the last few years. And it's sad to see, but it just keeps happening. And at some point, something's got to be done, Chris. It's 3 years now. We're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And Adam Beasley wrote a really good column the next day in PFN, and he said similar things. What we were doing 3 years ago, we're still repeating now. We haven't learned from those mistakes. And if we've got to grow, we've got to change.
Yeah.
By the way, hold on a second. For that 1-14 thing, I think that's something else, because they beat 4 winning teams in 2022. So, but I'm counting 5 overall in 3 years. So they have 5 wins.
I suppose the argument is, did they have winning records at the time rather than finishing with winning
Maybe
records?
yeah, but if that's the case, then it's what? They have 3 wins against.
Well, regardless of what it is, it's a terrible fucking record.
Yeah, it's at least
I think we can all
4-11 or something like that.
Well,
5-11.
In spirit, they clearly have had trouble versus good teams. We know that.
Yes.
Like, we don't need to know the actuals, on the details on that. Probably 2 ways to look at that. You could say, well, that's damning of Mike McDaniel, but at the same time, you could look at that and say, well, apparently then they're also really, really, really reliable at beating the inferior teams, which is something that you would point to coaching, because that's like an old Tony Sparano thing, back in the day. Like, you're fairly good coached. You might not have enough talent, but you're fairly good coach. So you reliably beat up the bad teams, and you just don't have enough talent to beat any of the good teams. It's sort of a choose your own way of perceiving it, or looking at things. Choose your own perspective. This game, as a word, like, I lament the fact that we can never really bust in, just one narrative at a time. We have to go kind of like a 5-for-1. It has to be in the bitter, freezing cold, against a genuinely good team with Super Bowl aspirations, on a short week, on the road, in a loud environment. And late in the season, like, it's just like, okay, let's just pile up all of the things, and that was the opportunity. Though they had the opportunity to, in a very loud and very big way, say, hey, this team is different. This Miami Dolphins in 2024 with Tua, actually in the game and healthy, is different. Instead, we got what we got, and it wasn't different. And it's not surprising. I think that this was, as for the game itself, it was a defense and special teams, to be fair, but defense-led meltdown. I think that's where the complementary football really broke down. You have a defense that had been, analytically speaking, one of the better tackling teams in football, believe it or not. The Miami Dolphins had entering the game, and then suddenly they can't tackle a cardboard cutout of Josh Jacobs, let alone Josh Jacobs himself.
They actually were the leading tackling team in the league, and that one game dropped them to 3rd.
Yeah, I mean, it was that abjectly awful. I think 23 missed tackles, something like that. How does that happen? Well, this is also, I pointed this out on Twitter, this is the oldest defense in the league, and it's not close. I think the average snap taker on the Miami defense this year has about 7 full seasons of experience. And the median in the NFL is somewhere around 4 or 5. This is a very old defense. And it's not just that the average player on the defense is older. It's that the ones who actually matter, the guys who are getting the good grades, the guys who are performing well, are the older players, not the younger players. So it's not just average age, it's also the fact that the older players are the ones being counted on. And those older players look tired, plain and simple. I said it in the preview last week. We're at the end of that New England game. You see it when you see it, and you saw it, and I saw it, and it looked like those defensive players were tired, and they needed a second win. They needed a break, and you're not going to get a break on a short week. Playing a second game in 5 days on the road against a genuine, a tough team, a physically tough team, a genuine Super Bowl contender in freezing cold. It's just not going to happen. And so the meltdown was, or freeze up, whatever you want to call it, was led by the defense. And I think that there's a double-edged sword thing that's happened with the way the defense has been built, because we were saying earlier in the year, especially while Tua was down, the defense was turning in heroic efforts. They acclimated much more quickly than you would have expected to a brand new defensive system under Anthony Weaver. And that's probably because of how many veterans they have. That's probably because of all that experience they have. But on the other hand, you get to later in the year, these guys are flagging and they're struggling, and they really need younger players with fresher legs to carry the torch for them in some of these games, and they don't have them. They don't have them. They have a rookie in Chop Robinson who, yes, he had a pretty good, 3, 4, 5 game, depending on your accounting, run. But as I pointed out in the last show, his 3 finest games came against the likes of Joe Noteboom and DJ Glaze and DeMontre Jacobs. I mean, that's not Zach Tom. It's not, Rashid, what's his last name again, Simon? Walker. That's right. Walker. It's not those guys. And so, he's not going to have the same impact in this game that he did in the previous 3 games. You knew that. You needed someone else to step up, and there is nobody else to step up. Jalen Phillips is gone. Javon Holland kind of just refuses to do so on a consistent basis. He's not one of those young players with the fresher legs that's stepping up. I'm sorry, he's just not. And they don't really have those guys that should have a bigger gas tank than the older players that actually step up and take the hold the torch for them. And that's what we're seeing right now. Now, are they going to get rejuvenated a little bit in this kind of half bye week? Maybe, because they've got a week and a half off. They might look a little bit fresher coming out of it. But is it going to last all 5 games to end the season, and enough to make an improbable playoff run and stuff like that? You'd have to have your doubts about that. And that's the way the team is built. And the offense certainly didn't do anything outstanding to outweigh the defensive performance, but the offense was also put in a 14. I mean, in the blink of an eye, they were put in a 14-0 hole, right? They had 1 drive on offense. It wasn't even a 3 and out or anything. They had 6 plays and, didn't quite get it done, had to punt. And then by the next time they got the ball, they were down 14-0 against a genuine Super Bowl contender in their house in freezing cold. And whatever game plan that you had that might have concentrated on ball control, and as the Dolphins offense had been doing with these longer drives and controlling the offense, that all goes out the window because you're down in a 14-0 hole. So the offense didn't do anything outstanding, but I don't think the offense actually, you can't pin this one on them, in my opinion. So we'll see going forward if the defense actually, steps up again. Does Bradley Chubb come back at some point? And reconstructed knees as they may be, they're still fresher than the guys that are there right now. And then, we'll see if any younger players actually step up. But I tend to doubt it.
Can I just say though that at 14-0, at the end of the first quarter, I would hate to think that you'd go away from your game plan. Do you know what I mean? You can still run the ball down 14.
I think in reality, that's that across football, like everybody does. You're down 14. You're down in a 14-0 hole against a good team with a good offense. You're clearly having trouble tackling them and stuff like that. If you had a ball control game plan, I'm sorry, but that has to go away. You've got 14 points to score now, more than them.
You've still got 3 quarters though.
Yeah, three
I
quarters.
just thought the game plan wasn't very
But
good.
the overwhelming majority of NFL games are decided by one score, right?
Mhm.
You're in a 14-0 hole against a Super Bowl contender in their house, and their offense is actually is pelting you right now, right? So your mindset has to be, because they're not going to be done scoring at 14. Well, you have no reason to believe that they're going to be done scoring at 14. So your mindset has to change. Your mindset has to change. Like, we have to get on track. We have to on offense, and I think that's the reality of it.
I just think, Alpha, I just don't think the game plan was very good. I think that, whilst Chris and I disagree, I believe that going into a place like Green Bay against a not amazing front seven, I thought that, Jeff Hafley's defense confused us a fair bit with their simulated pressures and those sorts of things. I didn't think we played very well on the offensive line. I thought Kendall Lamb actually, I thought apart from Aaron Brewer, I thought the four up front were really mediocre, and I thought Teron Armstead had a pretty bad game. I thought
That
Kendall
was
Lamb
his
had a
worst
really
game.
bad game. Yeah, I might have been his worst game as a Dolphin, frankly.
Yeah.
But I just don't know how you go into that game and think that, in that cold and just try and continue to pound your 178-pound scat back in between the A gaps. I just don't, like Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson. This was a game that was absolutely built to get in behind Ingold and just keep running the ball, keep running the ball, keep running the ball. And, even, and I take Chris's point, I don't agree with it, but I take Chris's point about being down 14-0. But I just kind of, because in games like this, for every kind of long A-chan run or long, comparatively long A-chan run, you also get tackled behind the line of scrimmage, stopped at the line of scrimmage, and because he just doesn't have the power to run through those, obviously he's got the speed to beat some holes or to hit some holes, but doesn't consistently have the power. And they were blitzing Quay Walker when we tried to throw, and he can't hold up in pass protection. And I just thought overall the game plan was, I go back to that Buffalo game where we lost 3 weeks ago, wherever it was, 4 weeks ago, on the 89-yard field goal at the end of the game. And kind of, I had huge praise for that game plan because I thought it was absolutely perfect. I thought it might have been Mike McDaniel's best game plan as a Dolphin head coach, but I just thought the game plan on Thursday was just mediocre.
Yeah. In 3 seasons, and I think that this team, like you could talk about the cold, and yeah, they don't win in the cold, but they don't win on the road is the problem. I looked this up. They've won 3 games in 3 seasons as road underdogs, and those 3 games was the Ravens game in 2022, the Chargers game last season, and the Rams game this year. What those 3 games have in common is the first two was 2 offensive explosions, and this last one was a great performance by the defense. And there's many games in between where they were road underdogs and they either got blown out or they lost close games, but they can never put two together. They can never put two sides of the ball together. And they did it in the 3 wins that they got the last 3 years. This team has a road problem. They just don't play well on the road, period. Forget cold, hot, sleet, snow. They're a bad road team. And
Yeah, but
and when it
I will say a good tackling team doesn't turn into the worst tackling team we've maybe seen in years, just because they're on the road. They got short arms and short effort because of the cold and because they were tired. I mean, that is I don't see any way around that.
I tend to agree because there has to be some type of explanation for that defensive performance. But I'm going to go to you on this, Simon, and then we could go to break. What do you figure is the problem? Why? Because the stats are damning. You have, like I said, 3 road wins as road underdogs in 3 years, and you're 13-12 in one-score games. Now, I happen to think that there has to be a skill to it because if not, the Chiefs wouldn't win 14 in a row one-score games. What are those issues? Is it just their philosophy on offense?
I mean, this is a really hard question to answer not being in the locker room because you just don't know. But I do think it's telling when Deshaun Elliott comes out and says the team is soft. Jordan Brooks came out and said the team was soft the other night. I think that's really interesting. And I think that's compelling evidence as to, maybe there's just not enough tough guys. Maybe there's just not enough people, not enough people with that kind of dog in them that just need to roll up their sleeves in the really, really tough moments and get dirty. And I don't know whether that starts with the head coach. It's impossible to say because you're not in that locker room. But who are the killers out there? Who are the kind of the Roquan Smiths or the Fred Warners or the Matt Milanos or who are those absolute dogs that are just going to, Where are those players?
I
You
mean,
know, we
hell,
don't.
Isaiah McDuffie played like that.
Yeah, yeah. Who are those players? You know that are gonna just get down dirty. I mean, you know, the dirty kind of player that we've got on our team is Leo Eichenberg, and he should barely be starting. You know, so who are those guys when things get tough? Who are the, you know, where was the, who's our Evan Ingram that's going to run over and take Aziz Al Shair's head off after? Do you know what I mean? I can't answer that question because I'm not in the locker room, but I just do think it's instructive that you've got an ex-player who was around the team for a couple of years, and now you've got a new player who's come in from a fairly tough environment in Seattle, very tough, you know, a tough team in Seattle. He's been around some tough players with Bobby Wagner and people like that. And, you know, you come in and you say this team is soft. I think that's very, very interesting. And I think that's a mindset and a mentality that whoever the general manager is needs to significantly look at in the off season. And the other thing is that, you know, I don't think it helps when you go to the playoffs, people build you up, you do what you do, you have the big money players, the Ramseys and as Chris talked about on OnlyFins, you know, that you look at the free agent signings and it's been an absolute, you know, it has been a disaster, an absolute disaster. And I think when you're coming in and you're a player, you're a good player, you're a player like Jordan Brooks, or you're a player like whoever it is, and you just look around and people are letting you down left, right, and center because they're just not good enough. They're not good enough to hold up against big teams. Yeah, we're a Hall of Fame team against mediocrity. We're a Hall of Fame team against bad teams, but against the good teams, for whatever reason, and I think it's a mindset and mentality, and we just don't have the right people, the right personnel. You know, it's bad draft picks, it's bad signings, and I think that compounds itself. And when push comes to shove, we just don't have the. You know, look at Green Bay and what they did, and you know they had some backups playing in key positions, and they've still got guys who can step up and perform. You look at that offensive line. You know, every single one of them was drafted by the team. You look at our offensive line, it's not the same, and they dominated our defense generally. Yeah, it's a tough one to answer, but it's something that's got to change. It's got to change, and I think it's a mindset thing that we're you know a sunny team. We're you know, and therefore we're soft, and we can't. Who genuinely thinks if we got into the playoffs? I can't even think that the most diehard glass half full rose tinted glasses Dolphins fan would think that if we got into the playoffs, we would have much of a chance on the road in the cold against Baltimore, on the road in the cold against Kansas City, on the road in the cold against Buffalo. That's just not the team that we are. Maybe we win one out of 15. I mean, the numbers I've got in front of me now: 1 out of 10 McDaniel in his last 11 games against winning teams, and 3 out of 14 against teams above 500. Who genuinely thinks we go on the road and beat Baltimore? I mean, and what was the last? It was 59-14 or something, 59-19 last season when we got smashed by them. So we're just not built that way. And I think something indicative has got to change in the way that we build our team.
You know, frankly, Simon, it might be our best bet, you know, and this is people would rather not face Buffalo, but I think our best bet might be Buffalo, who tends to own us.
Yeah,
and that's just because of the weird division thing.
Dichotomy of division, yeah.
Yeah, because
one question I wanted to ask you is that we've set up, if you're a new GM, okay, we've set up the way that we've set up in terms of speed and those sorts of things, but we know that we've got a quarterback who's outstanding in terms of accuracy, outstanding with his quick release, outstanding with his timing. Do you think that we need to rip up the offense in terms of we can move away from that speed, because teams have now worked out how to cap those deep balls, and Tyreek is having one of his worst seasons, you know, without injury that he's had in his career? Is it a case of bringing in bigger receivers, a bigger offensive line, a more complementary pounding run game? How would you, if you were GM Kaufman, what would you do in terms of how you would change up the alignment of this team?
Well, I think it's disappointing that you've got $60 million worth of assets, and evidently they're little more than, you know, sometimes productive decoys whenever you're facing shell coverage or cover two. And I don't think I don't like that is something that you will look at the coaching staff for. I think that there's some blame to be shared around. And yeah, I would look at that and say, well, then that suggests, because I look around the league is playing shell. The league is playing a lot of cover two this year. You're seeing a lot of teams that have the heavy investment in their wide receivers. Those wide receivers are not being productive. It almost seems like a backlash against lately. You've seen those wide receivers be more important in the free agent process, be more important in the team building process. And they're certainly getting a lot of money out there, and they're being traded around and stuff like that. I think you're seeing some sort of backlash against that. And I think you do have to take a step back and say, listen, you gave Tua the big contract and you're building around him. You may be convinced that in 2022, which is now, 3 seasons ago, heading into 2022, you may have been convinced that this is what you needed to do to get Tua going. But is this the same Tua Tagovailoa that he was coming off the 21 season? You know what I mean? I don't think so. I think he has gotten discreetly better in measurable ways every single year. And at this point, you might have to let go of this model of what you think the Miami offense needs to be with Tua Tagovailoa, with the super fast, smaller receivers, and stuff like that. Because the fact of the matter, he did win under Flores. He did win games under Flores, and we did not have that approach. He was throwing the Ryan Fitzpatrick sort of jump balls and stuff like that to bigger receivers. So have some faith in the quarterback that you gave a mega contract to, and build it the way that you need to build it. And I think that all things come to an end, and it seems like this cycle is coming to an end as far as the way the Dolphins offense is built. Now, it does seem that McDaniel's run offense is such that you do need speed at the running back position, that you need home run threats and home run ability there.
But you can have big speed.
Yeah. But as far as the wide receivers and how to build the rest of it, don't get married to it. No. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, and it's the way I would see it as far as, GM Alf, what he would do is build out this run game, because if you could get Tua on schedule and on third and long and third and short, he's proven that he is one of the best, if not the best this season on third downs. So if you build out a run game and you make him a play action quarterback, very much like Sean McVay did with Jared Goff, which almost led to an MVP season and almost a Super Bowl win. They lost in the Super Bowl. Then I think you'll get dividends will be paid. Yeah,
Would you draft Ashton Genty then, both of you?
I would give it. Look, if he falls to me, I think he's one of those special guys, and I think Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry have proven that all of this just go get any running back nonsense is just a bunch of nonsense. Like, these guys are special players. Yes, I would take him.
I would not. Okay. I still think that. Listen, you have to borrow off of your abilities, and I don't think you can just take anybody at the running back position. But I think that this is one position where Mike McDaniel has shown that he can uncover somebody. And it doesn't mean that they have no talent and they don't need talent at the position. But I think that you're going to have to borrow off that. This team needs way too much. The entire defense needs an overhaul. They're the oldest defense in the league, and they're not getting younger every year. Father Time just makes them get older. So no, you have too much.
All right.
Too much you need.
We're going to go to break, but first let me tell you about Underdog. Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. Tonight is Browns-Broncos. If you're keeping score at home, Broncos are 2 games ahead of Miami on the loss column. So if they lose tonight, no harm, no foul, essentially, with that loss against the Packers. Although you would have liked to have won that game and be tied for the playoff spot tonight. But
we're all Browns fans tonight.
Yes, go Browns. Go Jameis Winston, a guy who should have been the Dolphins' backup quarterback, by the way. Vulture protection. If you select a designated running back to score a touchdown in your pick'em entry and they get vultured, we will rescue your entry. Red Zone Rush, a game you won't find anywhere else. Just pick whether or not a player will score a TD by swiping right for yes and left for no. Simple as that. Plus, your entry will be automatically boosted and you'll get a 51% profit boost when you play. Join over 5 million fans that are already playing on Underdog. With their Pick'em game, you can win money by making entries with your favorite players. Download the Underdog app today and use the promo code 3yards. That's the promo code 3yards, the number 3 yards to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Higher or lower, you make the call on Underdog. Must be 18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 19 plus in Alabama, New England, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. And now for our other sponsors. Thompson Cigar has been America's humidor since 1915, offering the widest array of cigars and cigar accessories at the lowest prices. Known for our innovative ways to save, including exclusive 5-pack deals and many club options, Thompson Cigar is the trusted choice for cigar lovers seeking quality and value. Check out ThompsonCigar.com for incredible deals and become part of the Thompson Loyal. That's THOMPSON cigar.com. You know me. I enjoy a good stick with my football on a Sunday, on a Monday, on a Thursday, and Thompson Cigars is where I do my shopping online. Whether it's a smooth Connecticut in the morning or a Maduro at night, Thompson Cigars has it all. Thompson Cigar has been serving cigar enthusiasts since 1915, making it the oldest mail-order cigar company in the U.S. Get 15% off orders of $50 or more, or 20% off orders of $75 or more. Visit ThompsonCigar.com today and explore their incredible selection of cigars and unbeatable deals. Enjoy up to 20% off orders of your order of $75 or more. That's ThompsonCigar.com and use the promo code 3YARDS, that's the number 3 yards, at checkout. Discover why Thompson has been America's humidor since 1915 and join the thousands of satisfied customers who trust Thompson Cigars for their quality, value, and exceptional service. ThompsonCigar.com.
Breathing